her name popped up on the screen like a ghost I hadn't invited. Emily Harper. 32, divorced. Former interior designer. Willing to relocate. Open to older men. I stared at the profile for what felt like hours. My hand hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly, the way it used to when I first pitched this business idea and had no clue if it would work. But it had. Oh, it worked better than I ever imagined. I built a business that made fairy tales for the wealthy, tailored, polished, discreet fairy tales. Millionaires came to me when they wanted the perfect wife, and I delivered. I built profiles, sourced women from elite circles, recruited models, actresses, artists, and curated their appeal until they were irresistible. I wasn't a pimp, I was a conductor of chemistry. I made perfect matches. At least, that's what I told myself. But seeing her on the applicant list, that shook me. I hadn't seen Emily in over 6 years. We divorced quietly. No scandal, no public mudslinging. Just two people, drifting apart, or that's what we told the world. In truth, she left me. Said I was married to my ambition, not her. Said I had become a machine that knew what everyone wanted, except the woman sleeping beside me. When she left, I didn't chase her. I buried myself in work. Built a matchmaking empire. Now I was the name whispered in penthouses and yacht clubs. I was the secret weapon of lonely billionaires. But this felt like a cosmic joke. Or a test. I leaned back in my chair, staring at her photo. Time had touched her, but gently. Same sharp jawline, same eyes that always looked like they were hiding something. But there was a softness now, or maybe sadness. She didn't smile in the picture. She looked almost tired. Why would she sign up here? She hated my business model. Called it packaging love like it's some product on a shelf. Said I was killing romance one bank transfer at a time. And now here she was. Willing to relocate. Open to older men. God. I scrolled through her application. No mention of me. Of course not. That would have flagged it with my staff immediately. I should have deleted her profile. I should have marked it for rejection and pretended I never saw it. But I didn't. Instead, I clicked Move to Tier 1 evaluation. A week passed before I saw her again, in person. She walked into my office like a stranger who had been there 100 times. Calm. Poised. Dressed modestly but beautifully, like always. That effortless class that used to make my knees weak. Ms. Harper, my assistant, Clara, greeted. Right this way. I watched from behind the two-way glass. I did that for most interviews, it allowed me to gauge reactions honestly. It was the illusion of privacy. But with her, it felt wrong. Clara sat across from her, going through the usual scripted questions. What are you looking for in a partner? Emily smiled, faintly. Stability. Kindness. A man who knows who he is and doesn't need to prove it. A pause. Then she added, someone who sees me. I swallowed hard. Clara nodded, scribbling notes. And you're open to marrying within 6 months if the match feels right? Yes. Would you be comfortable with a man significantly older? Yes. And if children are involved? She hesitated. I'm not sure I want any more. Clara marked something. Noted. One last thing, have you ever been married before? I held my breath. Emily's fingers twitched on her lap. Yes, she said quietly. Once. Anything we should know? No. And that was that. She got up. Thanked Clara. Walked out with grace like she always did, like nothing touched her deeply, even when I knew it did. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called her. She didn't pick up. Of course she knew the number, I never changed it. I waited 2 hours before texting. Why now? 5 minutes later, the typing bubbles appeared. Because I ran out of choices. And maybe, because I miss believing in love. I stared at that message for a long time. My staff shortlisted her for one of our platinum clients, a hedge fund guy named Bradford who lived in Monaco and had 2 kids. The man was twice divorced, dull as drywall, but respectful and very generous. I should have let it go. I should have let her match with him. Be someone else's memory. Not mine. But instead, I did the stupidest thing I've ever done. I invited her to the private retreat in Sonoma, a place reserved for our final match vetting process. And I went myself. As a client. She didn't recognize me at first. I had grown a beard since she last saw me. Changed my hair. My voice, maybe deeper, more tired. When I walked into the garden where she was sipping wine near the fountain, she looked up and smiled politely. Then the color drained from her face. Ethan. I gave a small nod. She stood slowly. What is this? I signed up. Don't lie. I shrugged. Technically, I'm allowed to. You created this whole agency, and now you're pretending to be one of your own clients. No pretending, I said. I'm here because I want to know something. She folded her arms. What? I walked toward her. Slowly. If I matched you with someone else, would you actually fall in love? Or are you just trying to forget me? Her eyes welled up, but she didn't blink. That's not fair. Neither was you leaving. She stepped back. I left because you stopped looking at me like I mattered. Like I was someone you chose, not someone who happened to be convenient at the time. I built an empire after you left. Good for you, she said, her voice cracking. I built a life that collapsed. We didn't talk again that day. She stayed the night in her room. I stayed in mine. But the next morning, she found me in the breakfast room, alone with black coffee and silence. She sat across from me without a word. Then whispered, I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't think you'd care. I looked at her. Really looked. I never stopped caring. She blinked fast, trying not to cry again. I applied to your agency thinking you'd never see it. I didn't want pity. I wanted a second chance. At something. Anything. I thought you hated what I did, I said. She nodded slowly. I still do. But I hate being lonely more. We sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of a place designed for new beginnings. I didn't know what to say. And for once, I wasn't the man with all the answers. We didn't speak again for a full day after that breakfast. She stayed on the far side of the retreat grounds, taking long walks alone, sometimes sitting by the koi pond in a chair too small for the weight she carried. I watched from a distance, not out of obsession, but because I couldn't stop myself. Because when a ghost from your past sits across from you and tells you she's lonely, it wakes something up you thought was long dead. The retreat was meant to be professional, a final vetting round. Clients would interact casually with several carefully chosen candidates over a weekend, all under the guise of wine tastings, hiking trails, candlelit dinners. It was designed to feel spontaneous, but every detail was orchestrated. Except this. This, her being here with me, broke every rule I built this empire on. Clara wasn't happy when she found out I was participating. You said you'd be observing from behind the scenes, not inserting yourself, she scolded, cornering me in the staff office. I changed my mind, I said. You've never done that. I didn't respond. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. You're risking everything for a woman who walked away from you. What are you trying to prove, Ethan? I didn't know how to explain it. That it wasn't about proving anything, it was about remembering. About finding out if we were ever real, or just a casualty of who I used to be. That night, the group gathered around a bonfire. 10 clients, 10 candidates. Some nervous laughter, some forced conversation. Emily sat beside a man named Marcus, a European tech investor who had his eye on her since day one. He was charming, in an arrogant kind of way. I watched them, my jaw tight, my wine untouched. She laughed at something he said. Tossed her hair back like she used to when we were out with my board members, pretending to be interested in their investment strategies. And then, as if she felt me looking, her eyes found mine through the flickering firelight. She didn't smile. Neither did I. Later that night, I found her alone in the rose garden behind the villa. I didn't expect you to join the fire circle, she said without turning around. I didn't expect you to laugh like that with Marcus. She turned. So we're keeping score now. I walked toward her. The scent of roses was heavy between us, mixing with something I hadn't felt in years, regret. I don't know what we're doing, Emily, I said. But I can't pretend seeing you here doesn't mess with my head. She looked up at me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Then why didn't you delete my file? That question hit harder than I expected. I don't know, I admitted. I think part of me wanted to believe you were looking for me. She let out a bitter laugh. I wasn't. Thanks, I muttered. No, listen, she softened. I wasn't looking for you. I was looking for the version of you I thought still existed. The one who used to hold my hand under the table at boring charity dinners. The one who used to say we'd build something together, not just you building something while I waited in an empty house. I remember that version, I said quietly. I lost him somewhere along the way. We stood there, the night air thick with things we never said when it mattered. Then she whispered, so did I. The next morning, Marcus requested a private session with Emily. My staff scheduled it, as they should. It was the process. The protocol. I almost canceled it. I almost tore up the script we followed for years. But I didn't. I sat in my office, watched the live feed on my screen, the silent footage that let us read body language without words. She smiled at him. He leaned forward. She touched her necklace the way she used to when she was nervous. His hand grazed hers. My chest burned. I slammed the laptop shut. Minutes later, I was outside, pacing near the wine cellar. That's when she found me. You watched. Always do. I said no, she said, folding her arms. I paused. To what? To his offer. He asked if I'd go back to Monaco with him next month. I turned slowly. Why? She took a step forward. Because he's not who I came here for. I exhaled, a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. I wanted to hate you, she said. I wanted to look at you and feel nothing. But I still do. I still feel everything. I stepped closer. Then why didn't you come back sooner? Because I was ashamed, she said. Ashamed that I left something that, deep down, I knew wasn't broken. Just neglected. And I didn't want to admit I needed you after all. I reached out, brushing her hair back the way I used to when she woke up next to me, the light barely cutting through the blinds. You still wear that perfume, I whispered. She nodded. You still notice. We kissed that night. No passion. No urgency. Just the weight of two people who never stopped orbiting each other, finally colliding again. And yet, it wasn't simple. The next morning, Clara confronted me. She's not just a woman, Ethan. She's your ex-wife. This whole thing could burn your credibility. I don't care. Well, I do, Clara snapped. We've built this company from scratch. If anyone finds out you personally vetted a candidate and took her back, we lose everything. Trust. Clients. Media discretion. I looked her in the eye. I'm not letting her go again. Then at least don't be stupid about it, she said. Don't act like love excuses everything. That line stuck with me the rest of the day. Love doesn't excuse everything. But maybe it explains some things. At the farewell dinner, we made our relationship public, sort of. We didn't announce anything, didn't make a scene. We just held hands. Most people didn't even notice. But Clara did. And so did Marcus. He raised a glass across the table to me. To unexpected reunions. Emily smiled politely. But I saw it in his eyes, the glint of knowing, of competition lost. I didn't gloat. I just held her hand tighter. That night, lying in bed beside her in the guest house, I whispered, "Do you think we can really start over?" She turned, her forehead brushing mine. "No," she said. "But maybe we don't have to start over. Maybe we just have to keep going from where we paused." Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. Because it was true. Some stories don't end. They just wait. It's one thing to reunite with someone you once loved. It's another to try and live with them again. Emily moved in a week after the retreat. Not into my penthouse downtown, she said. That place never felt like home. Instead, we stayed at the old lake house. The one I never sold, even though I told everyone it was too far from the city. Truth was, I kept it because she once painted the guest room in seafoam green and told me it was the first place she truly felt safe. I never repainted it. Not once. Even when it made no sense. Even when it hurt to walk past the door. And now she was back, barefoot on the deck in the mornings, sipping black coffee, watching the fog roll off the water like she never left. But the ghosts hadn't left either. We tried to pretend they weren't there. At first, it felt good. Natural, even. We laughed again. We cooked together. We slept in the same bed without hesitation, without need for explanations. We didn't talk about what broke us before, we just kept our eyes on the present like it was a tightrope and we were afraid to fall off. But tension finds its way in through the smallest cracks. It started with small things. One morning, I got a call from a high-profile client. A celebrity who wanted to be matched discreetly. I told Emily I'd be gone for most of the day. She looked up from her book. That's fine. I've got errands. Later that night, she asked, do you still use those surveys? The compatibility scores? I nodded. Of course. We've refined them over the years. She stared at me. Did you ever run mine? I froze. What? My profile. Did you ever plug it into your system? I hesitated. No. You didn't want to see who I really matched with. I didn't want a computer telling me something I already knew, I said. She gave a sad smile. That's romantic. Or stupid. Maybe both. Days turned into weeks. She started drawing again, sketching on the back porch, letting the breeze carry her hair across her eyes. I watched her sometimes from the kitchen window, torn between guilt and peace. I hadn't felt this alive in years. But I also hadn't felt this scared in years either. One night, I came home late after an emergency client meeting. When I walked in, I found her on the phone, standing near the fireplace, her voice low. She didn't hear me at first. Her back was turned. No, I'm not sure, she was saying. It's complicated. He's different. But also the same. I don't know if I trust it yet. A pause. Yeah. I think he still loves me. That's the problem. She turned then, and our eyes met. Her face fell. She hung up quickly. Who was that? I asked. My sister, she replied without blinking. I nodded. You don't trust it? She took a deep breath. It's not you. It's everything. Us. The history. The silence we left behind. I walked closer. We can't undo that silence, Emily. But we don't have to keep feeding it. She looked at me, raw and open. I'm trying. I know, I said. So am I. 2 days later, Clara called me. We have a problem, she said bluntly. A journalist from the Post is snooping around. Someone tipped them off about your little reunion. My stomach turned. Did they name her? No, not yet. But they know a former client is now living with you. I rubbed my temple. How did this get out? I don't know, Clara said. But if this goes public, you know what happens. They'll question every match we've ever made. Say it was rigged. Say you play favorites. They're not wrong, I muttered. They are if we spin it right, she said. But I need to know, are you serious about her? Or is this going to burn out in 3 months? The question pierced deeper than it should have. I don't know, I said quietly. I want to be. But I don't know. That night, I didn't tell Emily. I watched her from the hallway instead, curled up in bed reading, the light pooling around her like a halo. I thought about how many lives I'd orchestrated with precision. How many perfect stories I'd sold to men desperate to believe in a fairy tale. But my own story? I never wrote that one. I just reacted to it. That weekend, she found the file. I had left my laptop open. A stupid mistake. I'd been reviewing new client requests and comparing them to profiles in the system. Her name had popped up again. Marcus had submitted a second interest request, even after being rejected. And I'd opened it. Not to act on it. Just curiosity. Insecurity. Some old, dark impulse. When I walked into the study, she was staring at the screen. Her face was white. "You said you didn't run my score," she said flatly. "I didn't," I said. "That's not what this is." He submitted again. I didn't respond. She turned. "But you looked." I nodded, shame crawling up my throat. I wanted to know what made him think he still had a chance. And I met her eyes. "You're still in his top 3. She blinked, hurt blooming across her face. "Good to know." "Emily, I didn't." She held up a hand. "Do you know what it's like? Knowing you've been processed by the men who once swore you were unlike anyone else." "I didn't process you. You created the process, Ethan." The words hung in the air like poison. She walked out. I didn't follow. 3 days passed. No words. No messages. Then on the 4th, I found a note on the kitchen counter. "I need space. I don't want to leave. But I can't be one of your profiles, Ethan. Not again. Not even if I'm the favorite." She was gone. Not like last time. This time she left her clothes. Her toothbrush. Her sketches. Like she intended to return. Or maybe just wanted me to think she would. I stared at the note for a long time, something hollow cracking inside my chest. For the first time since the agency became successful, I didn't go to the office. I sat in that lake house alone. And remembered everything. The first night we kissed on the rooftop of our old apartment. The time we danced barefoot in the kitchen after burning the risotto. The way she whispered, "Don't lose yourself," before walking away the first time, and how I didn't listen. I thought I had her back. But I didn't. I had a memory. And if I wanted the real thing, the present her, the scarred her, the changed her, I had to stop treating her like a client I could study and win. I had to choose her. Not because she was perfect. But because she was mine. I didn't sleep the night she left. Not even for a second. The lake outside the house was still, its surface like a mirror, reflecting the moonlight and mocking the chaos inside me. I sat in the same chair for hours, rereading her note, wondering how I, a man who made millions helping people find love, still didn't know how to hold on to my own. I knew where she went. Her sister lived 2 hours away in a smaller, quieter town that still had bookstores without coffee shops and diners that closed by 8. Emily always said it was the kind of place where people still looked each other in the eyes. But I didn't drive there right away. Because for once in my life, I had to stop acting like every mistake could be undone with a perfect pitch, a carefully crafted message, or a grand gesture. This wasn't a client I could charm. This was the woman I once broke without even realizing it. So instead, I started writing. Not to her. To myself. I listed every way I failed her the first time. The missed birthdays, the late-night meetings I justified with, "just one more deal," the way I stopped asking her about her paintings, and then silently resented her when she stopped showing them to me. I listed the ways I failed myself too. The goals I chased not because I loved them, but because I didn't know who I was without ambition gnawing at my heels. Then I listed everything I'd learned since she came back. She didn't need a savior. She didn't want to be someone's prize. She just wanted to be seen. 3 days after she left, Clara called again. "I haven't seen you at the office," she said. "That's not like you." "I'm thinking." "About her." "Yes." There was a pause. Then her voice softened. "You know I'm not against this, right? You've made it clear it's a PR disaster waiting to happen." "Because it is. But that doesn't mean I want you to be miserable. I've seen what she did to you the first time." "She didn't do it alone," I said. "I helped." Clara sighed. "Are you going to chase her this time?" "I think I already did. I think I spent the last 10 years building this empire as a way to prove something. Maybe to her. Maybe to myself. So what now?" "Now," I said, "I stop building things and start feeling things." Clara was quiet for a moment. Just make sure, whatever you decide, you're not running from the version of yourself that worked so hard to survive all this. I'm not running, I said. I'm returning. On the fourth day, I drove. No assistance. No security. Just me, in a car I hadn't touched in years, an old convertible she once begged me not to sell because it reminded her of our first road trip down the coast. I found her at the park near her sister's house, sitting on a bench under a tree that looked like it hadn't changed in a decade. She was sketching again, a girl walking a dog, a boy chasing bubbles. Life. The kind of beauty I'd forgotten how to see. She didn't look surprised when I sat down beside her. You found me, she said. I never lost you. She smiled faintly. You just misplaced me. No. I misplaced myself. You just walked away from the wreckage. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind move through the trees. Then I said, I looked at your file. I know. I didn't run your score. I swear. But I read your application again. Your answers. Your hopes. I filled that out in a dark place, she whispered. And still, it was the most honest thing I've read in years. You said you wanted to be chosen by someone who saw your flaws and called them beautiful. She blinked fast. I continued, I was too proud the first time to admit I didn't know how to love the right way. I thought giving you everything meant you had everything. But you were lonely in a palace. And I never noticed. She looked down at her sketchpad. I reached over and gently turned the page. Underneath was a rough drawing of me, or a version of me. Sitting in a chair, staring into space. Sad. Hollow. I started drawing you again the day I saw your face at the retreat, she said quietly. Not the you on the brochure. The real you. I want to earn this, I said. Not rush it. Not define it by what we were. But by what we can be now. Her voice cracked. I'm scared to believe that. I am too. But I'd rather be scared with you than confident without you. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then whispered, come home. That night, back at the lake house, we danced in the living room. No music. Just us. Her head on my chest, my hand on the small of her back. I didn't need words to know she forgave me. And I didn't need a ring to know I wanted forever. But still, some part of me feared the world would find out and twist it all. That the empire I built would crumble because I dared to love the one person who didn't fit the algorithm. Then something happened that changed everything again. The next morning, I woke to an alert on my phone. A message from one of our top clients, not angry, but curious. Is it true? Is she the Emily? Because if so, I want what you have. I blinked. 2 more messages followed. Then 5. Then 10. Clients who once demanded logic and control, suddenly wanted the raw, unscripted truth. They wanted love that couldn't be scored. Clara called that afternoon, nearly breathless. Whatever spell she cast, it worked. People believe in you again. Not the founder. Not the genius matchmaker. You. I smiled. Because I believed in me again too. That weekend, we stood by the water's edge, skipping stones like we used to. She looked over and said, you know, we could write our story into the next campaign. Be honest about how messy it was. Would you be okay with that? She shrugged. As long as it's not edited to make us look perfect. I promise nothing about us will ever be perfect, I said. She laughed. Good. And then she kissed me. Slow, soft, like a new beginning written on an old page. When the press release went out, it wasn't a campaign. It was a confession. I called it the matchmaker's mistake. It wasn't some grand romantic monologue, and it didn't promise fairy tales. It was just my truth, about how I built a business on control, on systems and strategy, while quietly failing the one woman who had ever loved me without any calculation. And then, against all odds, she came back. I thought it would tank the company. But instead, something strange happened. People didn't run from our services. They ran toward them. The servers crashed from all the new applications. Not because they suddenly believed in algorithms again, but because they finally believed the men behind them was human too. And the woman. The woman who once walked away from me was now the reason people were willing to believe in second chances. "You're going to be on the cover of 2 magazines next month," Clara said as she barged into my office. "One tech, one romance." I looked up from my desk. "That's a combination I never expected. You're a legend now. The reformed genius who chose love over logic. They're calling it the return of the heart." I laughed. "Sounds dramatic." Clara smirked. "It's selling." But even as the agency flourished again and our story became headline gold, I felt something inside me pulling in a different direction. Because when you've built your identity around everyone else's love stories, it's disorienting to realize yours matters more than all of them combined. Emily didn't like the attention. She agreed to one interview, a quiet podcast recorded in our living room, with no cameras, no prep, just her voice telling her version of our story. Raw. Honest. Sometimes uncomfortable. After the episode aired, we received thousands of messages. Some thanked her for her vulnerability. Others asked if we could help them reconnect with lost loves. But there was one message that stopped us both. It came from Marcus. Yes, that Marcus. He sent it to our corporate inbox, but it had one clear subject line, for Ethan and Emily. From someone who gets it now. The message read, "You were right to turn me down. I wasn't looking for love. I was chasing proof that I could win anything. I see now how easy it is to confuse attraction with connection. I don't envy you anymore. I admire you. Whatever it took for you both to get back to each other, I hope it was worth it." It felt like closure. Not because I hated him, or even feared him, but because for a moment, he represented the version of me I used to be. The one who needed to win, not feel. One evening, as we lay on the old couch watching the fire crackle, Emily turned to me and asked something I wasn't prepared for. "Do you ever think about walking away from it? The business?" I asked. She nodded. "All the time," I admitted. She was quiet for a moment, tracing circles on my arm. "Would you ever do it?" I looked at her, at the way the flames reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, I truly considered it. Not as a loss, but as a trade. 2 weeks later, I made a decision. I called an emergency board meeting. Clara looked at me like I'd grown 2 heads. "I'm stepping down," I said. Silence. "I'll retain ownership. And I'll be involved in advisory roles. But I'm handing over operations." One of the partners leaned forward. "Why?" I smiled. "Because I finally understand something. Matching people isn't about fixing them or calculating them. It's about letting them grow. And I can't keep helping others find connection if I'm not nurturing my own." Another board member scoffed. "This is about her, isn't it?" I didn't flinch. "Yes. And thank God it is." Clara met my eyes. And for the first time in a long while, she smiled too. "I'll handle the transition. Go live your life, Ethan." We bought a small art studio together. A converted barn on the edge of town, where she could paint, and I could write. We hosted monthly open mics, storytelling nights, and even started a series where former clients shared their journeys, not just the matches that worked, but the ones that didn't. It became something bigger than us. Something real. One night, after a late event where a woman broke down reading a letter she never sent to her first love, Emily and I stood under the stars, hand in hand. She looked up at me, tears still in her eyes from the stories we'd heard, and whispered, "Do you think we'd find each other again in another life?" "I don't think we'd even lose each other," I said. "Maybe we'd just take the long way, like we did here." She laughed softly, leaned into my chest. "The scenic route. Always. But not everything was perfect. Because life isn't a fairy tale. Sometimes we fought. Sometimes we struggled with the weight of being that couple in the public eye. People expected us to be proof that true love always returns, when in reality, we were just 2 people trying to unlearn our worst instincts and hold on to the good. But every night, when we climbed into bed, her skin cold from the studio, my hands ink-stained from jotting down story ideas, we remembered. What it cost. Why it mattered. And how close we came to never finding our way back. One afternoon, as I walked past her easel, I saw a new painting in progress. It wasn't abstract like her usual work. It was us. But not the now us. It was me, sitting alone at my desk, years ago, hollow-eyed, surrounded by match reports and headshots. And in the background, a blurry figure, her, walking out the door. It stopped me cold. Why paint that now? I asked quietly. She looked up from mixing colors. Because I need to remember too. Not just the reunion. But the moment I chose myself. And the moment you let me. I nodded, emotion thick in my throat. We both walked away once, I said. But the real miracle is that we had the courage to walk back. She smiled. And stay. It was a Tuesday when I got the letter. A real letter, not an email, not a text, not some glossy card with a photo of smiling clients thanking us for changing their lives. Just a plain envelope with my name handwritten on the front. The return address was smudged, but I didn't need to read it. I recognized the handwriting. And I knew before I even opened it that the past I'd buried was crawling back, and it wasn't coming quietly. The letter was from Cassandra. My first mistake. My first real matchmaking failure, long before I had an agency, long before the sleek offices and the TED Talks and the magazine interviews. Before I built an empire on curated connections. Cassandra wasn't a client. She was a friend of a client, and the first woman I ever tried to match as a favor, just to prove I could. She fell in love. Deep. Fast. Hard. With a man I vouched for. And he ruined her. Lied. Cheated. Took her money and her trust. Left her hollow. I told myself back then that it wasn't my fault. That I didn't know he was a con artist. That I couldn't have predicted it. But her words in that letter, they weren't angry. They were calm. Which somehow made them worse. I'm not writing to blame you. I just thought you should know. I'm dying. And I need to know something before I go. Did you ever feel guilty? Did you ever think about what happened after you matched us and disappeared? I stared at the letter until the words blurred. Emily found me like that, sitting on the floor, my back against the bookshelf, the letter trembling in my hands. She knelt beside me, brushing the hair off my forehead. Who is she? I told her everything. And to her credit, she didn't flinch. She didn't accuse or assume or panic. She just listened. And then she said, so go. If she needs peace, give it to her. You've been chasing closure all your life, maybe this is your chance to offer someone else theirs. The hospital was in Vermont. A quiet place that smelled like rain and hand sanitizer. I didn't expect her to look the same after all these years, but the moment I saw her, it was like time folded in on itself. She looked small in the bed, frail, but her eyes, those sharp green eyes, hadn't dulled a bit. When I walked in, she smiled. You came. I didn't know if I should. I wasn't sure if I wanted you to, she said, smirking. But I guess dying makes you generous. I sat beside her. You sound exactly the same. She laughed, then coughed, and for a moment I saw the pain behind the humor. I needed to see you, she said once the coughing stopped. Not to blame you. I meant what I wrote. Then why? I asked gently. Because I forgave you years ago, Ethan. But I didn't know if you ever forgave yourself. I swallowed hard. I didn't. She nodded like she already knew that. Then let me help you. We talked for hours. About what happened after he left her. About the years she spent rebuilding. About how she never married again, not because she didn't believe in love, but because she learned to believe in herself first. I was angry, she admitted, but not at you. I was angry that I gave a stranger the authority to decide who I should love. You trusted me, I said. And I failed you. You were just a kid trying to prove something. I don't think you ever wanted power, Ethan. You just wanted to matter. Her words hit deeper than I expected. Before I left, she squeezed my hand. Don't carry this anymore. There's enough weight in the world already. I promised her I wouldn't. On the drive back, I thought about how many stories I had helped start, and how many I'd never followed through. I'd always believed matchmaking was about beginnings. I never stopped to think that sometimes people needed help after the happily ever after didn't work out. When I got home, Emily was waiting on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee and a question in her eyes. She forgave me, I said, setting the mug down. But more than that, she showed me what it means to let go. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. You've changed. I hope so. No, she said, turning to face me, I mean it. You're not building walls anymore. You're pulling them down. I looked out at the lake, the surface rippling under a soft breeze. I think I want to do something different. Emily arched a brow. Different how? I want to open a retreat. Not for matchmaking. For healing. She blinked. You mean? A place for people who thought they found love. Who lost it. Who don't know how to start again. Not just counseling. Connection. Truth. Raw, real conversations. She took a deep breath, and I could see her turning it over in her mind. Then she smiled. Call it the second chance house. I laughed. That's exactly what I was thinking. She leaned in and kissed me, softly, like a promise. 3 months later, the doors opened. Not to cameras or fanfare, but to people, real people, carrying their stories and shaking hands. We held writing workshops, forgiveness circles, anonymous letters to exes, and solo retreats for people too broken to speak yet. And something miraculous happened. We started seeing former clients, not coming to complain or sue, but to thank us. To tell us how, even though their match didn't work out, they learned something about themselves that led to the right person, later. We also saw a few of our successful couples, now struggling, now honest, now human. It became more than we expected. It became more than us. One night, after a storm had knocked out power and the house glowed only by candlelight, I sat with Emily on the porch again. She was sketching. I was scribbling journal notes. She set her pencil down, then looked at me with that quiet gravity she only used when something mattered. I'm proud of you, she said. I smiled. You're part of this too. No, she said. I'm proud of you. Of who you became when the world wasn't looking. I reached for her hand, threading my fingers through hers. You know what I think? I asked. What? I think we're still writing our story. She leaned her head against mine. Good. Because I'm not done loving you yet. They say the greatest love stories don't end with happily ever after. They end with truth. Raw, unfiltered, and imperfect truth. I used to believe that the secret to love was compatibility. Now I know, it's growth. It's showing up even when it's uncomfortable. It's choosing the same person, not once, but over and over again, even after they've seen you at your worst. And I had a secret I hadn't shared with Emily. Not because I didn't trust her. But because I was afraid. Afraid the life we'd built could shatter under the weight of one last truth. It started with a phone call. One I almost didn't answer. An old client, one of my earliest, had been trying to reach me. He was polite, almost hesitant. Ethan, he said, I don't mean to disturb your new life, but there's something I think you need to know. His name was Douglas, a retired investment banker from Chicago who married a woman I matched him with 10 years ago. Audrey passed away last month, he said. My heart dropped. She was the best thing that ever happened to me, he added. But near the end, she told me something that surprised me. She said she never would have come to your agency if it weren't for Emily. My pulse quickened. Emily? I asked. She said Emily was working for a nonprofit back then, and she'd spoken at a women's conference about giving love another try. She mentioned your agency. Audrey signed up the next day. I sat there, stunned. Emily had never told me. Douglas continued, I just thought you should know. Your ex-wife believed in your dream before you did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept watching her, lying beside me peacefully, unaware that she'd just rewritten the beginning of our story without even trying. Because all this time, I thought she had walked out and disappeared. I thought she'd left me to figure things out on my own. But she never really left. Even when we were apart, she was planting seeds. She believed in me long before I became the man worthy of her. And she never once asked for credit. The next morning, I made us coffee. Set the mugs down. And before she could even ask what was wrong, I knelt in front of her. She stared at me, eyes wide. What are you doing? I'm asking the woman I married twice, if she'll say yes to me one more time. She blinked. Ethan. Not for a ceremony. Not for photos. For us. For this messy, beautiful, stubborn, sacred life we built. A tear slipped down her cheek. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a ring. Not a diamond. Nothing flashy. Just a simple band, engraved on the inside, the final match was mine. She laughed through her tears. You're still such a romantic. I shrugged. You turned me into one. She took the ring, slid it on her finger slowly. Then yes. 1,000 times, yes. We didn't throw a big wedding. We didn't send invites. We invited the guests of our retreat, the ones still healing, still wondering if love was worth trying again. We stood barefoot in the garden under the old oak tree, and I told our story, the full, flawed, vulnerable truth. I thought I was building an empire, I said. But I was really just building a mirror. A way to reflect what I was missing in myself. I looked at Emily, whose eyes shone with quiet certainty. And when I lost her, I built a machine to replace the magic I'd once felt. But machines can't hold you when you're scared. They can't forgive you when you fail. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When she spoke, her voice was steady. I thought love was about always feeling seen. But now I know, it's about choosing to see. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it hurts. We kissed. And in that kiss was every silence we'd overcome, every night we'd spent alone, every piece of ourselves we had reclaimed and rebuilt. The retreat expanded. Not because we advertised, we never did. But because stories travel faster than strategy. And people came. Not just the heartbroken. The curious. The wounded. The hopeful. They came to be reminded that second chances were not fantasy. They were work. Messy, slow, often painful, but beautiful. And something strange happened. The same board members who once scoffed at my emotional PR stunt came to the retreat. Not to judge. To heal. I found Clara one evening sitting in the circle, clutching a letter she never sent to the woman who broke her heart 5 years ago. She looked up at me after reading it aloud, and whispered, "I think I'm ready now." "You always were," I said. Emily painted more than ever. Her studio became a gallery of stories, portraits of love in all its forms. Young, old, broken, repaired. And one day, she hung a painting I hadn't seen before. It was us. Not as we were now. As we had once been, in our apartment hallway. The moment she walked out, suitcase in hand. But in this version, she wasn't walking away. She was looking back. And on my face, there was no anger. Only longing. She titled it, "Still Watching." I stood staring at it for a long time. "You always knew I'd come back," she said softly from behind me. "No," I replied, voice shaking, "I always hoped." On our third remarriage anniversary, we hosted a new kind of event at the retreat. We called it Unfinished Letters. Everyone brought a letter they never got to read out loud, to a lost love, a parent, a child, even to themselves. I went last. I stood in the center and unfolded a crinkled, coffee-stained page I'd kept hidden in a drawer for years. It was the letter I wrote to Emily the day she left me the first time. I read it, voice breaking on every line. I let you go because I thought I had to win. I chased status. I chased control. But none of it was worth the silence you left behind. I looked at her, the woman who sat front row, tears in her lap, ring shining under the evening light. I never sent this because I thought I had more time. But now I know, real love doesn't wait for perfect timing. It just shows up. Late. Messy. But real. The crowd was silent. And then she stood. Crossed the space between us. Took the letter from my hand. And held it to her heart. "I forgive you," she whispered. Then louder, for everyone to hear. "And I love you." They say love is patient. But what they forget to say is that it's also brave. To start over. To admit failure. To try again. And in a world built on algorithms and data and curated moments, the bravest thing you can do is this. Look someone in the eye and say, I'm still here. Because in the end, I didn't just find matches for others. I found mine. And she wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But together, we were possible. Always had been. We just had to believe.